Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 14th Annual Voices of Youth Summit. This summit is organized by high school students from all over Saskatoon. My name is Omer, and my partner's name is Thomas, and we will be your hosts this morning. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is treaty territory, a traditional meeting grounds and gathering place of the Assiniboine, Cree, Dene, Dakota, Saulteaux, and Métis. We acknowledge all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
The Saskatoon Open Door Society Voices of Youth Leadership Summit is funded by the Government of Canada under the Canada Service Course. Thank you to the Government of Canada for providing a platform to amplify youth voices. The goal of today's discussion is to bring together industry stakeholders and youth in our community to have a mutual beneficial roundtable discussion as we learn from each other and make steps to better our community.
Now, I'd like to introduce our panelists. When I say your name, feel free to give us a wave so people know who you are. So our first panelist today is Colleen Norris. Colleen Norris is a superintendent with the Saskatoon Public School Division. Her leadership and administrative responsibilities cover a number of areas, including English as an additional language and safe, caring, and accepting schools.
Our second panelist is Scott Gay. Scott Gay is a superintendent with the Greater Saskatoon Catholic School Division. He's a superintendent and responsible for the Catholic Division's schools in Saskatoon.
Joining us, we also have Mohammed Iqbal, who is a grade 12 student currently enrolled at Bedford Road Collegiate and is the valedictorian for the graduating class of 2021, as well as Farheen Karim, who is grade 10 student also enrolled in Bedford Road Collegiate.
All right, so good morning, superintendents. To reiterate, my name is Mohammed Iqbal, and I will be facilitating this panel discussion along with Farheen Karim. So my first question is actually regarding the new Quint system and mental health. So as you may be aware, the school system has changed from teaching students through 2 semesters to 5 semesters. Instead of 5 subjects with an hour dedicated to each, students learn 2 subjects with 2 hours and 30 minutes dedicated to each. And so furthermore, students are attending school every second day. And I know this creates kind of a rushed and overwhelming situation. Like, to exemplify, I'm learning more than 1 math unit in a day, when in the original system, or in the original semester system, I would have almost like a week dedicated to each unit, So my question is then, what current efforts and initiatives are currently occurring in schools to improve a student's mental health, especially during the Quint system? I would first like to pose this question to Superintendent Norris.
Thank you for the question, and I know we do have the Quint system in Saskatoon Public Schools. I think Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools has a slightly different system, and probably Superintendent Gay will talk about that, but it is a block system too, and certainly the stress that you've indicated there of attending every other day, that would be common for all of our high school students in Saskatoon right now. So there are a number of different things that we're doing in Saskatoon Public Schools. Many of these things have existed prior to the pandemic as well, but there has been an increased focus on these different priorities and strategies to assist students. So mental health, of course, is of utmost importance to us, and I know there is a lot in the news right now around student mental health and the mental health and well-being of our population in general. So one of the things that we do is we focus on prevention and education. So making sure that students know who they can talk to in the school or outside of school too. So we continue to make sure students are aware of that. The 4 of us, when we talked about how we look after ourselves, we identified a few different strategies, right? And so we make sure that students know what those strategies are from as early as kindergarten on. So whether that be physical activity or personal things that you enjoy, those types of things are a focus in our curriculum. And then we also make sure that students know about those opportunities that exist in the community. We have an initiative called Move to Grow, where we actually do different challenges for students and for staff to get physically active. And we just recently had a campaign that caused a lot of excitement in our schools. So that's one way that we do things. We also focus on staff and family well-being. So our counselors in our school system reach out to parents and guardians and caregivers as well. Because oftentimes if students are unwell, it may be because someone in their family is unwell too. So in those cases, we're connecting those families with community supports. I'll try and answer your question about the Quint a little bit here. That, I have a son in grade 11, so I can relate to what you're saying. There are some things about the Quint that are really hard on students, particularly in different subject areas. And so we try and focus on things in a hopeful and positive way in our schools, where the reason that we've shifted to this block system is for the health and safety of everyone. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to move to a scheduling system that allows for a different way of looking at things and accounts for some of the things that you're talking about in terms of the math issue, or in terms of band being in a block. Those kinds of things are things that we're hoping we can adjust our schedule a little bit next year, keeping in mind that the pandemic will still be a major factor. So there will be a need to schedule in blocks, but we'll try and make some adjustments so that students' well-being and mental health is looked after.
Thank you for your response. And I just had a follow-up question to that. And I was wondering, has it been difficult presenting community and student supports, especially online? Could you discuss maybe a little bit the transition then, from the original system to this system?
There's been a number of different transitions to online. So this would be an example of that. And lots of our organizations have made that transition on their own. So examples would be like Boys and Girls Club. Our mental health and addictions are doing online meetings with students when necessary, and in-person meetings as well. And so health and safety protocols are looked at in those cases. But I do think our community partners have been very creative in transitioning to online and providing different ways of connecting with students. And then our work is to make sure that students are aware of those. And so we count on our counseling teams. We count on our restorative action program workers. We count on our Indigenous advocates to make sure that students are aware of the different supports in the community.
Thank you so much for that response. I would now actually like to pose this question to Superintendent Gay, and if you could elaborate a little bit on the system they have over there.
Yeah, thanks very much. We looked at a block system, exactly the same protocol last year, trying to figure out how are we going to navigate more around the health and safety of all of our staff and students as we were developing a system. And so I would say that we've all done our best under the current circumstance, but I think there's room for us to improve, and we've heard lots of feedback from our community, from our students, from our teachers, from our staff to try to adjust. So presently what we did, rather than a Quint system, we decided that we would have a morning block that was longer but fewer days, and then we would have an afternoon block that was slightly shorter. So our morning block is 165 minutes and our afternoon block is 115 minutes. And so within that, we also have at the end of every single day, we also have a tutorial period that takes place throughout there. So students are able to access additional support all through that time. Our teachers who are on prep during a particular block also are connected to students who have to be at home. And so that's been a piece that we've tried really hard to utilize our staff in that way and have them making connection with our students who are at home. I have a group of students, two from each of the high schools, that I meet with on a very regular basis through this kind of a platform, which is one of the cool things that has actually happened during the pandemic. That, is actually a grade 11 student who reached out to me and said, I'm just wondering how you're hearing student voice about how we're doing in all of this. And I would say that was more around initially the mental health piece of it, just making sure that we had, as we were doing our planning, are we considering what students are thinking? And that was invaluable, and it's continuing. So before Christmas, I probably met with that group almost every week. And together we developed a survey together to send to all of our students to just get the feedback. How are our students doing? Where are the challenges? What are the celebrations? How are they feeling about a block system? Those types of things. And we created this survey and sent it out to students as a voluntary. If you're willing to do it, do the survey. What surprised me is we had almost 1,200 students respond, which actually, that was an incredible response. And so what we did is we took all of those, that information, and then that group of students actually made a presentation back to all of the other students to share in the classrooms. Here's what we heard. And, then that kind of informed some of our discussions about how to do better. One of the big things that came up is what you were describing, Mohammed, is like when you're taking a math class, it is just rolling so quickly. And so when you're doing that block, it's like also the blended, I think, threw things even into a much bigger challenge for the mental health of students, and the sort of that overwhelming sense. It's one thing if you're really gifted in mathematics or science, but even then you're just so passionate about doing really well that you still need your teacher. I think what we've learned is how much we value our teachers and the expertise they bring. So did hire a math teacher and a science teacher who are fully there to be responsive to students. So have a form that we've created, and I sent it out to all students and to all parents to make sure everyone was aware. And so those folks are just on the days that people are in a blended scenario, there's a teacher that they can send questions to, connect to by phone or by email or by a Zoom or Teams type of call to be able to respond to those two areas in particular. We also tried to develop a group of videos for every math unit. We had teachers within the division develop sample lessons kind of down to about a 25 to 30 minute video with some exemplars for every concept that was being done, so that when students were at home, they were able to go, okay, I don't have my teacher, but I have a teacher who can show me that, and I can watch the example a few times. Because we felt like in humanities, you're able to go, you kind of can work your way through it. It might not be as well as if you had your teacher, but I can probably navigate that. But if I get stuck on a math concept, I'm just sometimes stuck, and I can't do anything for that whole day. And that we felt was creating a lot of anxiousness. So just like one thing I would like to say too is our two school divisions work really closely together, and we talk a lot about how we're supporting students. And even though we're two divisions, we definitely have lots of dialogue. And so, some of the things that are talking about that whole being healthy, not just on the mental health part, but your physical health. How do we keep that going? We talk about different presentations that come together from our school counselors and our RAP facilitators. We're also trying to make sure that our students know that they can still, on the days that they're not at school, access our administrators. They can access our support programs as well. And I would say that most students have preferred, if they have to have a meeting with a school counselor or with an administrator, they quite often would rather connect on the day that they're not at school, because then it's not pulling them out of the classroom. And so there's been lots of talk about how to do that, providing opportunities for some classroom presentations from organizations like Legacy One or Catholic Family Services in our particular concept. I think about within the curriculum, there's lots of connections, and I know our staff are doing a lot of work trying to figure out how to embed things like wellness discussions within the curriculum that they're teaching. Even you think about you talked about the 30-10 method, I think you called it, Mohammed, and I think we've talked to our teachers about, you have to really consider what's your instructional design when you're doing your class. And I'm sure you've had teachers who are incredibly gifted at being able to shift and do 3 or 4 different things within a block. And you've probably had some other teachers who have had a hard time switching to a new model of instruction, and it feels like I'm getting a 3-hour lecture or 2.5 hour of just one after the other concepts coming at me. And so there's variation. And, some of our teachers have been doing this a long time, and some have shifted more easily. But I would say that as second semester comes along, I think you probably are, seeing some of those, even those teachers really shift their practice, recognizing, I have to take what's the most important and most difficult to learn, and I need to really focus on that when I have the students with me. And so we've had a lot of discussion about that, and we hope that that supports our students too, because, in a lot of classes, like a history class, you might have had multiple written assignments, and usually over a semester, let's say you had 2 essays and a couple of other projects to do. Well, you can't fit that into 30 days or 35 days. You have to do what are the outcomes that are met and not have as many of those assignments. So trying to create those connections to what are the resources that are available both in the school, and as Colleen had referenced, like just making sure that students, how can we know what's there for them? And so our schools have something called Counselor Connections website, which would be all of our school counselors have developed that together, ways that can provide resources for students and places that they can check in, trying to really find positive ways to then figure out, like when students are struggling, how do we connect them to people like our health authority and mental health and addictions, whether that be, sometimes as was indicated earlier, sometimes that means we might have to have somebody come to the school, follow the protocol, and actually meet with the student. Virtual isn't the only way we can do that. So it's often the way we are using things now, and it works actually quite effectively. I think often for students who have transportation issues or families who are really, really concerned about the pandemic, knowing that someone can do this kind of a visual connection and have a one-on-one actually makes everyone feel safer, and actually sometimes brings their anxiety down that they don't have to go to a public office to do that. So I think we're seeing a lot of creativity and things that people maybe wouldn't have considered before are now coming in. Also, the last thing I'll just mention is we did both school divisions have done a mental health literacy kind of work with our teachers, and we've done some training of advocates within each of the schools. And then there's been lots of dialogue with the whole staff and lots of PD over the last 3 years about making sure that people have more information about mental health and are more open and accessible. So hopefully some of those pieces are helpful.
Thank you for your response. It was really a loaded response. So now we would like to move on to our second question, which is, this is my question. It is, considering that Saskatoon has a very large immigrant population, and amidst the population is still growing, what is the school district doing to help these newcomer students adjust to their newer environments, specifically in the domain of mental health? I would like to pass the question to Superintendent Norris.
Thank you for the question. I will touch on a few different topics here, but I'll leave some of them for Scott to talk about, because I think our answer is going to be very, very similar, because as he indicated, we do work very closely, particularly when it comes to our newcomer population. So one of the things that certainly we do is professional learning for our English as an additional language teachers. And so all of our teachers are qualified in that they have their CerTESL certificate. But then we also do some additional PD with them around trauma and how it impacts learning. So they would be aware of how trauma could be impacting the learning of students who are new to Canada, and then the supports that are available in our community and in our schools for those students. And they would be that first kind of trusted adult that would shift that student to the supports that they need. Our counselors in our school division work very closely with our EAL teachers as well to make sure that transition to school and to Canada is going well, and work with Swiss workers too, and Open Door to make sure that families are adjusting. So we have a Newcomer Student Center. So when our students arrive in Canada, they aren't overwhelmed by a high school of over 1,000 students and that kind of busy place. They meet with a teacher. They have an intake meeting. They talk about where they live, where they might want to go to school. There's some initial testing that is done so that placement can be determined. And then from there, the school is notified that a new family is going to be registering with them. And then that they have an opportunity to tour the school. And we've continued to allow those tours to happen in a safe way during the pandemic. And we've always kind of focused on that partnership with SWIS again and support with referral to other agencies. Another thing that I know both divisions do is provide translators or arrange for translators, I should say, whenever necessary, so that communication is easier for families. So those are some of the things that we do in Saskatoon Public Schools.
So considering these programs, like you talked about SWIS, you talked about EAL, and Open Door Society. So what are some ways that they help reconnect those newcomers back to the community as a whole, like introducing themselves to the greater population? Because there's so much more people out there, but you are in another society per se because you're secluded in your environment. And how do they introduce themselves to the broader spectrum?
So I guess I'll speak about it like from the school perspective. So depending on language level, the student might be in classes with other EAL students who maybe have a lower language level. And so there would be an opportunity to interact with a variety of different students in that classroom. But most often, students also will be taking a class or classes in a regular year with the general school population. And so there definitely would be opportunities to interact, learn about others' culture in those interactions, and to become a part of the school culture. In addition to the classes, there's extracurricular opportunities, not so much this year, but in other years where students are encouraged to get involved in different things. And then there are safe spaces in the school. And I would say that would probably be a way that students continue to adapt to life in Canada and also to the pandemic and living through that right now. So places like our school libraries, there are different areas where students can connect with each other in kind of safe ways or have some individual time on their own. There are different computer labs and facilities that are open to students where they can, connect with friends sometimes. It is a bit different right now during the pandemic, and that might not be as great an opportunity. But there are still some ways that students can connect with others and become a part of the school culture.
Thank you. I would like to ask the same question to Superintendent Gay.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'll probably sound a little bit like repeat on some of this, but it is very similar to other students in the school in terms of the supports that would be involved. But our SWIS partnership is really big, and both of us are actually on the SWIS advisory. We're also on something with the city of Saskatoon called a local immigration partnership, and how do we make this city more accessible? And I think it's really good that both school divisions are a part of those discussions as well, because we connect to services not just for the students, but also to a lot of parents, and what kind of thing, because I think for students, they come to school and there's quite a bit of wraparound. Like there's a lot of resources that come to them, but I often think of the parents who arrive and they're done school and they're trying to access employment, access community, they're trying to learn the language, and they just don't have that same level of support. And I just, my wife immigrated here when she was quite little. and her mom was a stay-at-home mom for all of the time, and it just was so hard for her to get connected to the community compared to her children, who had that opportunity all the time within their days. So I think those connections are important. You know, it was mentioned around our EAL teachers and the training that they have, and that trauma-informed dialogue for some of our students, where the trauma can present itself in so many different ways, and so they're always seeking support to learn more. There's something called cultural bridging information that SODS has also helped our staff with. Sometimes in particular school areas, there might be a large number of immigrants from a particular country or culture. And maybe it's one that, you know, within a Catholic school division, many of us as teachers, we come from a similar faith background. We have students from who speak, you know, 50 plus different languages that attend our schools, but we know that we maybe come with a particular approach to religion that is more unified, right, than in some other places. And so we really are trying to make sure that we are very much an open space and value the religions of all. And so, you know, for us though, sometimes it's helpful for us to have places where we can ask questions, have dialogue. Others who are entering our school who are not Catholic but choose a faith-based education, that they are able to ask some of the questions that they need to have some of those pieces. The translation work, I think, is really big, I think, for both the new students, but also, you know, where we actually have students helping other students. You know, that's another piece where you kind of know. I remember sitting at Bethlehem one time when I was the principal and thinking it was super cool that had a student, I remember when she arrived and could not speak English at all, and 3 years later she's helping me do a registration with a family, and she is working as the, you know, kind of a translator and telling them about who are the people in the school who are going to help take care of you and make you comfortable. And I just thought, wow, that's so amazing that can happen in such a short period of time. We also offer, and this is, I think, hopefully helps with people around confidence and mental health. We run a number of our regular classes as sheltered classes as well. So we would have EAL students who language level is a little bit higher, but they might take their English 10 class, or they might take a history class, but with someone who has some EAL training as well, so that there's a little more of a vocabulary and language-based instruction and more of an attentiveness to that. Same within a few of the junior math classes, trying to really provide enough of the language pieces embedded within it without it having to be a tutorial type of setting, but you're actually gaining credit within that in place. Hopefully that answers some of the question.
Thank you for your response. I would like to pass it to Mohammed, my partner, again.
Hello. Yes, we are running a little over time for this portion, and I must say I'm absolutely adoring the conversations that are happening. However, time is of concern, and we have only 10-ish minutes left, like under 10 minutes. So this will be the last question. So this question revolves around kind of like the counselors and the initiatives that are present that we kind of touched upon a little bit. So I'm currently enrolled actually in the International Baccalaureate, or the IB program, at Bedford Road. And it's a program where a university level curriculum is taught to high school students. This program can often generate like large amounts of stress for students, especially during the times of the pandemic. I know some of my peers are utilizing resources that are present, but my question is, in what ways are schools informing students about the mental health resources available, such as RAP workers and counselors? I think some of the initiatives that currently exist were discussed a little bit when I posed my previous question. So this question is kind of like an elaboration when it comes to that topic. So yeah, just a shorter response. I'd like to pose this question first to Superintendent Norris.
Okay, I will try to be brief. I know we've been talking about the IB program and your upcoming exams, so I can absolutely relate to the stress that you are feeling with those coming up, and I wish you good luck in them. So there are many traditional ways that we share this information, and that has been done, for decades, and that would be the newsletter. That would be the one of the ways. Our websites, of course, I think are more trafficked by students. But probably the most effective way of sharing this information with students is through social media. And particularly during the pandemic, that's a way of advertising that seems to work very well in our collegiates. So our high schools have social media accounts and share that information, encourage students to follow. And then sometimes even breaking off from just the school, there might be a student services social media account, or there might be a student representative council account that is also sharing these types of resources with students. So that's one way. We also have on our LibGuides, a lot of our collegiates will have like a detailed list of mental health resources that are local, provincial, and national for students. So that's kind of always there and updated and curated regularly. I think the most effective way, though, is through relationship. So that would be that classroom teacher that knows the student best, sharing with them the information. And to make sure that our classroom teachers are informed during our staff meetings and our professional learning, our counselors would do regular presentations and regular updates with them on the resources that are available in the school, but also the resources that are available in the community. And then I think the teachers that know the students best are the best positioned to know who might need what, and then to know in which way to suggest that to the student, whether it be a personal conversation that might work best, but in some cases just passing them the information on a slip of paper might work well. It might also work to share it with their parent or their caregiver. And then the parent could also be coordinated in having the student sign up for a session or a counseling appointment or whatever the case may be. But I believe that relationship is the best way to get that information to students. Another way that we've done because we can't talk to parents in the same way. Parents aren't in the schools like they have been. We've tried to make our connections with parents continue. And some classroom teachers, will do a regular newsletter, regular emails to families. We've also focused on mental health with our school community councils in our presentations. So we've had very well subscribed presentations this year around mental health, and parents have come to those and then left with some strategies for day-to-day parenting, but also a list of resources that are available to them in the community.
We want to say thank you for your responses. It was really insightful and we really appreciate your presence here. So I would like to get started on our action plan. Okay, so first I would like to begin by summarizing the results of our conducted survey, which we did over the course of many months. Moving on to providing a recap of our discussion, then setting our intentions, last developing an action plan. First of all, one important aspect of this conference is our desire to be very intentional about the steps we take going from this meeting. Because of this, we wanted to take some time to discuss what sort of actions we could take that would improve young people's ability to access mental health services. Through our research, surveying, and our own lived experiences, we have found that a lot of youth are asking for more explicit discussions on mental health in classrooms. The majority of young people that responded to our survey also described a disconnect they felt in their relationship with the counselors and the facilitators in schools. Which connects us back to our wonderful discussion topic about the importance of students' well-being and mental health, and the immense role that school division plays in the life of a youth. We touch base upon the social barriers, how stigma affects an individual's mentality, and the environmental barriers, how the people around the student, like parents and teachers and caregivers, create a footprint on the individual's life. We discussed the pre-existent work that has already been done to improve this connectivity, such as prevention and education, and getting students' input while developing a sturdy point system and involving community services and yeah, creating an open environment for newcomers as well as all the cultures that are currently present in Saskatoon, and trying to create a safe and inclusive environment for everyone. So as I leave this discussion, I would like to set forward my intention to create a club for female empowerment and wellness, which will work to reduce negative body image and low self-esteem while promoting healthy mind habits. So this will potentially be called Be Active, and I will be working with many females in Bedford Road Collegiate, where I currently am enrolled at, and we will work towards providing the female youth more opportunities, as currently we see in my school, the males are getting so much more resources available because they hoard over places. And yeah, the females are just kind of shy and they're left out, and we would want to make them also part of the community and build their confidence, because this could definitely strike hold their self-esteem and their mental health. So I and a few other people from my delegates are planning to create this club to motivate the females and to get them forward. So, as we as youth, as we discussed, researched, and surveyed, want to put forward a proposition that could potentially benefit your contributions even further. So, a proposal that you guys could take. We would like to know, what are your thoughts on the possibility and effectiveness of both school divisions being able to provide funding to bring in skilled professionals, or the counselors from the school to do presentations in classroom on mental health skills more often? Of course, we've discussed about this with Superintendent Gay. He mentioned about presentations and how they bring in professionals from many places to give presentations. But I think like according to my own experience and my peers' experiences, some classrooms and some schools lack that. For example, my school at Bedford, and no, not even my school, I don't have much knowledge on that, but yeah, in my class, I was enrolled in Wellness 10 recently, and I actually got to experience that, and it was really life-changing. I had two speakers from Open Door Society who came in, and that really inspired me to outlook the path of mental health, and it was really beneficial for me to understand the depth of mental health. Before, most people I saw around me, they didn't really pay attention to the surrounding negativity and the hate that goes along with mental health. They took it negatively, but after this lesson, I saw a big change. And I feel that many schools should get that opportunity. For example, at Bedford, Aiden Bowman, one of my peers go to Aiden Bowman, and she has not received the same chance. So I was wondering if they also, me and my group was wondering if they, what's the separation between the schools that are disallowing some classes to get more opportunities, and how are the ways, if you think it's effective, we could take this forward into making it available for every school as possible.
Thank you. Well, I've been thinking about it as our conversation has occurred here, and there are a couple of things that I'm taking from this discussion. One of them is that although it's difficult for me to be in a school with the safety pieces, I think it's critical, because this has been so wonderful for me today to talk with students and to hear directly from you. So I'm thinking about the connections that Scott has with students in all of his high schools, and what a powerful way that is of learning things about how it's going in the schools for him. So that's a commitment that I would like to make coming out of this, is to find ways to connect with students in a more authentic way like this. And then the other piece is to support some of the ideas that I've heard here today, and then to work those into are the professional learning that we do with staff. And I think they exist already, but sometimes it's just a refresh of reminding staff about those critical pieces for looking after their own well-being and then the well-being of their students too. So those are the commitments that I'm living with here today.
Do you mind if I jump in on that around commitments?
Sure.
Yeah, I think, going back to that group that I had presently, I'd like to re-engage that group. I was even thinking about, even though we haven't had a wellness conference, and even the work that you have all done to create this kind of an opportunity, I'm kind of thinking, are there some sessions or some, even if it's recordings, that we get some people who we could invite students. And, those, not every student would have to do it. We wouldn't have to do it during the school day, but we could run something that, let's say, ran at, 4:30, for a half hour on a particular topic, that we would maybe send out and say, hey, if you're interested in this, if this is something that you're wondering about, where we could actually have someone either do a presentation or a recording. But I guess for me, when we do those kind of things, I always want to make sure that's balanced with support, so that if I'm hearing this and I'm realizing that, I think I'm struggling with this particular part of my life, then how do I connect to someone and not have to wait? In 3 weeks, we'll be able to take your concern. We need to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to get the support they need. So I am thinking about, what are the sessions, and I would be interested from from you as a group, if there's anything you want to share with Superintendent Norris or myself, of kind of the big ticket areas, like sort of, we can't address every particular area, but if there's certain areas where you think students need help on this, or I wish they knew more about X, Y, or Z, then that will help us to make sure that we're responsive to what students actually need, as opposed to thinking we know what you need. I think that's a key factor.
Yeah. To add on to that, I actually think there's like many aspects a student will need support considering the realm now because of the COVID system. I think the main ones would, of course, like branching it out, it would be education and then wellness, right? And finding the balance, right? Most kids currently that I've interacted with, myself including, it was a struggle to find a balance because the Quinn system made us so overwhelmed with how much workload we had. And yeah, it was just come home, study, even study like at midnight. And we ran into midnight's like bad, like at 3 a.m. I was still studying. And like Mohammed Timer Iqbal said, math and science was like when put together, they were really clashing subjects and they were really work heavy. And it was really tough for me to grasp my mind across. And of course, like it also depends on each individuals and their skills at different things, right? I was not that strong at math and science, so it took a really long time to develop a strategy. But I guess if teachers could provide more support in the because for the Quinn system, we only get 1 day in class and the other day we study individually instead of it being independent. If there's a chance for us to have a Zoom call, maybe like having something on the second day would also be efficient, like because I know the teachers also have their commitments, like how they have to teach the day twos or the day ones on the second day, how if it's possible to do it from 2 to 3 for 1 hour, like still in the class time zone. So just to get students to understand the topic better instead of scoring low grades on their exams and just panicking all of a sudden, because I think that truly degrades your mental health. And yeah, it challenges your other living conditions, such as eating healthy and having a proper wellness structure. And yeah, I think that would be really helpful. And also, like how we also talked about this, about the wellness aspects, how all of us love to work out and enjoy outdoor activities. But in this situation, a lot of people are not really getting that opportunity anymore, and it's so restricting because of this system. When many people are not like completely off workouts and stuff, because I like working out from home, so it doesn't really matter for me as much. But therefore, I've seen many people who are actually struggling with this, and my wellness teacher and some of my other delegate crews, we were working together to create the thing that I talked about, the group, Be Active. That will help bring things together for all of us. But I think if that kind of opportunity was available to a lot of other schools, that would be helpful. Instead of the youth enacting, maybe the teachers could start up their own, to have a period of time where this class would come in and they could do some workouts together or divide them up, just so everyone could stay healthy instead of just having a wellness class. Because for grade 11 and 12, you choose your own elective. So some people may not even prioritize those electives as much. So I think this would be a good opportunity for everyone to get the education as well as the fitness that they need. And yeah, I would like to pass it on to Mohammed Timer Iqbal to give a wrap up now.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And I agree, Farheen, that a balance between wellness and education is so essential in our day and age, and especially during these circumstances. But now to transition, it has been a delight to participate in these discussions with you all, but we are coming to the end of this panel, and I would now like to wrap up this conference. So firstly, the recordings for this panel will be posted on our Saskatoon Open Door Society Facebook page, as well as our YouTube account if anybody wants to go back and reflect on it later. As a part of this reflection, I want to thank you all for setting out some intentions of what you hope to achieve when it comes to helping our youth and their mental health in Saskatoon. As I stated before, I absolutely adored the discussions that were held, and I believe Superintendent Norris mentioned various initiatives and how those various initiatives were able to adapt during these circumstances. And I also believe she mentioned how community partners are really being creative, I believe was the word she used, when it comes to providing resources to students. I also believe Superintendent Gay stated that their staff also does a lot of work to incorporate wellness discussions within classrooms. And it was also discussed how some school counselors have ways where students can be connected to the resources they need online. So just to reiterate, then we also discussed throughout this conference the role that relationships plays between students and teachers. I think it plays a huge role, especially during the events of the pandemic. For me personally, this experience has been enlightening, as one of my favorite aspects of communication is recognizing and taking in various perspectives, whether it be a student, teacher, superintendent, adult, whatever it is. So to wrap up, I would like to once again thank our panelists, Superintendent Colleen Norris from the Saskatoon Public School Divisions and Superintendent Scott Gay from the Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools. My partner facilitator, Farheen Karim, and I would also like to thank all of our other peers from the Youth Leadership Initiative, who worked very hard to make this conference possible behind the scenes, as their work, in my opinion at least, is invaluable. And as always, a thank you to the Government of Canada under the Canada Service Corp for funding this conference. I would like to conclude today's conference with a quote that I believe applies throughout this whole conference. This quote is actually by writer Lisa Oliveira. Just because no one else can heal or do your inner work for you doesn't mean you can, should, or need to do it alone. Thank you all for attending this conference.